The dark snake pit was eerie, and the damp air was filled with a nauseating smell. Countless pythons wriggled their thick bodies at the bottom of the pit, making a creepy hissing sound. Cold, sticky sweat broke out on my back in waves. The kidnapper walked to the opening, his fleshy face trembling slightly with anger. "Celeste Chandler. It's all because of your husband. Your husband's company cost me everything. I have a mortgage to pay, and my parents are waiting for me to save them. How could you live so comfortably?" The kidnapper growled hysterically as he held a bright dagger against my neck. I froze, not daring to move for fear of provoking the kidnapper. The kidnapper threatened, "Tell your husband I want $100 million, or I'll throw you down and feed you to the snakes." My face was pale, but my body could not help trembling. Theodore Lambert had offended many people over the years. I knew it would be dangerous, but I never thought these people would be so ruthless. In my previous life, I cried to Theodore for help, only to end up with a miserable death. Just an hour ago, I realized I was reborn. Therefore, I decisively gave up asking Theodore for help. In this life, I wanted to let Theodore be together with his childhood sweetheart. I could only call my father-in-law, Fred Lambert. I thought Fred would not leave me alone for the sake of the family's reputation. "Fred, I've been kidnapped. They want $100 million or they'll throw me into a snake pit full of pythons." My voice trembled with fear, and my hand holding the phone was cold. It was as if my body had already turned into a corpse. I could only hope that Fred would send someone to rescue me soon. The voice on the other end of the line paused before speaking impatiently. "Celeste, this joke is too much. If Theodore hadn't called to tell me that you'd pretend to be kidnapped today, I would have believed you." My heart sank instantly. Fred's words seemed like a call from hell. I pondered, did Theodore predict my decision? Was he also reborn? I shuddered at the thought, and cold sweat ran down my forehead. He knew I was going to be kidnapped, so he deliberately chose not to rescue me and even informed his father in advance, making my crying out for help a joke. The kidnapper was already upset that I had not called Theodore. He pushed me further into the snake pit. My heart instantly leapt into my throat as I struggled desperately, begging the kidnapper to give me another chance. I had been reborn. Did I still have to die? The kidnapper spat out the words in anger. "You took the hard way when I gave you the easy way out. Do you think I won't kill you?" He pushed me forward again so violently that I stumbled and almost fell into the dark snake pit. The hissing sound at the bottom of the pit grew louder. It was like countless venomous snakes were laughing at my stupidity and ridiculous love for Theodore in my previous life. I bit my lip, and a metallic smell spread in my mouth. Clenching my fingers tightly, I could even feel the blood on my palms from my nails digging into them. Theodore must have been reborn too. Theodore knew I was here and what I was facing, yet he played dumb and even made Fred his accomplice. However, I knew that Fred was the only person I could turn to for help now. "Fred, I really have been kidnapped. Please save me." I almost cried into the phone, my voice incoherent with fear. Fred, on the other end of the line, was still nonchalant. "Celeste, you can argue with Theodore all you want, but don't joke about such things. He's busy. You should be considerate of him." I thought, considerate? When he was busy riding in a hot air balloon with Rosalie and when he pushed me into the sea, was I not considerate of him? However, I had no time to be angry, so I could only suppress my voice and speak into the phone with a hint of humble plea. "Fred, I really have been kidnapped. You and Theodore don't have to come. Just send someone over. Whether it's $100 million or a few $1,000,000, it'll solve the problem, right?" Fred sighed and answered with a hint of impatience. "Celeste, you weren't like this before. You can't play a trick like this to get Theodore's attention. His company went public recently. He's been really busy." "Went public? He's with Rosalie. Why doesn't he just die?" I screamed into the phone, unable to control myself anymore. However, I was greeted by a beeping. Fred had hung up. The despair was overwhelming. I looked at the dark snake pit and listened to the eerie hissing sound. I felt as if I would be entangled and devoured by countless icy snakes in the next second. The kidnapper kicked me impatiently. "Why are you crying? Make a phone call. Get your husband to pay up and redeem you." The suffocating despair took hold of me again. The tragic experience of my last life was vivid in my mind. It was indeed difficult to veer things off their course. I tried to search my mind for any possible way out. In my previous life, after I was kidnapped, Theodore still came after I pleaded desperately. He was about to take Rosalie around the world in a hot air balloon he had rented. The two of them were already aboard, but Theodore rushed over at the last moment and reluctantly threw down a suitcase of money to redeem me. I thought he still had some feelings for me, but what waited for me was an uncontrollable tragedy. No sooner had Theodore rescued me than he got a call from Rosalie. She said, "Theodore, why did the rope snap? I'm still up in the air." Theodore widened his eyes in horror and cried at the top of his lungs, "Turn off the burner. Hurry up. Turn off the burner." "What did you say?" "No. No." These were Rosalie's last words. There was no signal at 30,000 feet aloft, and she eventually crashed with the hot air balloon. Her body was said to have been completely disfigured and her brains mushed. There was not a trace of her once beautiful self. Theodore held her body in the morgue for a day and a night without eating or drinking. When he came out, he forced a smile at me. We were married, but it was only in name. He had not touched me in months. He saw me as an obstacle between him and Rosalie and wanted to kick me out. All I got from him was the cold shoulder. I grew guilty after what happened. Rosalie was a human being, after all. Seeing that I was at a loss, Theodore touched my head for the first time. "It has nothing to do with you. I forgot to secure the rope." He did not blame me and said he would spend the rest of his life with me from now on. It was one surprise after another during that period. He took me to a business event and bought me a beautiful dress for the first time. Then, he bought a yacht and said he would take me to Norway for the weekend to see the Northern Lights. For the first time, I found out how romantic he was and how lucky I was to be his woman. I looked forward to that day's arrival, but I was too naive. When I was enjoying the view on the northbound yacht, he pushed me overboard. The waters of the north were so cold that they hurt like arrows piercing the heart. "Theodore, what are you doing? Pull me up." I found his eyes infinitely sinister, as if he wanted to tear me alive. Theodore answered, "Celeste, you killed Rosalie. Do you know how scared she was, up there alone? I was kidnapped. I didn't know anything. Please, Theodore. I don't want to stay here alone," I begged desperately, trying to climb up with all my strength. However, he kicked me down with a more sinister look in his eyes. "Haha, I want you to experience what it's like to die in fear. This is a shark zone. You're going to be ripped to shreds." Finally, he sailed away, leaving me shouting my lungs out. Later, I was exhausted and eaten alive by a pack of sharks. It was not until my moment of death that I found out that Theodore had never accepted me. Rosalie had his entire heart, and not a shred was left for me. I did not know he had a childhood sweetheart called Rosalie until we got married. Theodore had loved her since he was little and had always thought of her as his bride-to-be. However, he married me by mistake. After we got married, Theodore habitually circled around Rosalie every day, including Valentine's Day, Independence Day, Christmas, New Year's Day. He abandoned me on all those occasions and hung out with her. Even in the middle of the night, he would get out of bed and go to her house to spend the night with her as long as Rosalie called. They would have been the happiest couple without me, so I became a thorn in their flesh. I was a little reluctant at first and tried stopping Theodore's behavior. In return, he gave me a look of extreme disgust and rudely interrupted me. "I married you, yet you're still unsatisfied. Rosalie is an orphan. Why do you have no sympathy?" He spoke as if marrying me was already bestowing me a great gift. "I'll cut you if you continue to dilly-dally." The kidnapper's voice rang again, bringing me back to reality. I didn't know what to do. If I called Theodore, would the same tragedy happen again? I was panicking as my mind raced. Just then, I saw a figure moving at the entrance. It turned out to be Theodore's assistant, Peter Zimmer. I shouted, "Help me. Mrs. Lambert, are you really here?" Peter walked into the cave unfazed, as if it were not a dangerous kidnapping scene but a boring tea party. I almost cried for joy as if I had just seen my savior, but what he said next made my heart sink instantly. "Mr. Lambert asked me to ask what the kidnapper would need in return for the release of a drama queen like you." The kidnapper was obviously surprised as he looked at Peter wide-eyed, but he soon regained his composure. Cut the crap. $100 million or you can collect Mrs. Lambert's corpse. Hearing the figure, Peter paused for a moment before bursting out laughing. His laughter was especially loud in the cave. $100 million? Haha, how dare you ask for that amount? Peter stopped laughing, his eyes full of disdain and sarcasm. Mrs. Lambert, Mr. Lambert warned me before I came that you're a good actress. He knows that you're pretending to be pitiful to stop him from traveling. He knows. I looked at him in disbelief, my hopes shattering instantly. Peter answered coldly, of course, he knows. Mr. Lambert reminded me to tell you that he won't be coming. Why don't you pretend for a while more? I'll leave first. My heart felt like it was pierced by a sword, and tears could not stop flowing down. No, no. I had to save myself, so I screamed, Peter, you have to believe me. Please. I really don't know this man. I've been kidnapped. The kidnapper was also angered by Peter's lack of cooperation. He kicked me hard and said through gritted teeth, you really think I won't do it? I don't want to die. Give them the money. I crouched on the ground and groaned in pain, but my heart hurt more. Mrs. Lambert, you're not worth $100 million to Mr. Lambert. Peter snorted. His disregard for me made me aware of my inferior place in the family. They did not care if I lived or died. Peter looked at me on the ground with disdain. If you think that kidnapping yourself will change Mr. Lambert's attitude toward you, you're dreaming. It was what fate did sometimes, it would ruthlessly drive people into a corner. I struggled to prove that none of this was an act, but Peter was unmoved no matter how hard I tried. The moment Peter turned around, the kidnapper panicked. Take one more step and I'll kill her. Kill her. Hurry up. Peter turned around with a grin. He waved, motioning to the kidnapper to continue. Mr. Lambert doesn't want this woman anymore anyway. Just keep acting and we'll see who has the last laugh. Before he finished speaking, a cold flicker gleamed in the kidnapper's hand as he sliced a gaping hole in my face. Bright red blood burst. Help me. I screamed at the top of my lungs. The moment Peter turned around, my heart jumped as tears almost burst out of my eyes. However, before I breathed a sigh of relief, Peter laughed out loud. Mrs. Lambert, where did you learn to act? I didn't believe Mr. Lambert when he said you could act. It's truly Oscar-worthy. My hopes were instantly crushed. I bit my lip to keep my cries of pain from escaping, only to find that tears were slipping down my cheeks and mixing with the blood. I shouted hoarsely, Peter, I'm not acting. I really have been kidnapped. Losing all patience, the kidnapper pulled my hair and forced me to hold my head up. Stop acting. Give me the money, and I'll let her go now. Peter ignored him, and the air instantly grew heavy with tension. I saw a brutal glint in the kidnapper's eyes. He was clearly prepared to take extreme measures. Don't you get it? I'm running out of patience. The kidnapper approached with his knife once more. I heard the sound of police sirens, and the kidnapper widened his eyes, yelling, How dare you call the police? Peter crossed his arms and questioned defiantly, What's the matter? Are you suddenly afraid? The kidnapper's expression changed as he suddenly stabbed my leg. Blood gushed out instantly as I let out a scream. I saw the kidnapper's disappearing figure in my blurred vision. Peter came up to me and said, Mrs. Lambert, don't blame me. Mr. Lambert asked me to call the police. I was now covered in blood as I weakly waved at him. Help me. So much blood? Is this real? Peter said. I heard Peter's panicked voice in my ears before I fainted.